can people live symptoms free that do have a thyroid illness? Because I think we really hold on to I just have a thyroid issue as if that's my life now.
Oh my God, Nat, I love that you asked this question. So our whole motto at Modern Thyroid Clinic is that there's no reason to still have thyroid symptoms. So medicine preaches, hey, well, you have a thyroid issue. This is what your life looks like. That does not have to be what your life looks like. Now, if you adapt the regular medical model and you only check TSH and you only get T4 treatment and you never do a full thyroid panel, you never address your Hashimoto's, sure, like you could be condemned for a life with a life of thyroid symptoms. If you get in the right hands, you get the right partner in your health, you're on the right medication at the right dose at the right time, working on your lifestyle, a life full of energy and vitality and thriving truly is possible. And that's really my mission in life, is to spread that message, because women deserve better and we are being robbed of the best, most joyous years of our lives just because we're being told that this is normal and this is what life is supposed to look like. And it does not have to be that way.
Obviously, you've said, okay, there are certain things that, there's medications that people obviously can be helpful. What are all the other things that people need to start to consider? Because you and I know so many people end up, taking some type of thyroxine, let's say, and over time they just need to take more and more and more. And it's because of all the reasons that you've mentioned that aren't being looked at. But what are some of the things that people, I know it's very difficult because it's an individualized approach. What are some of the main things people need to consider?
So I'd start with reverse engineering the things that keep you from activating your hormones, right? Reduce your stress, eat a low inflammatory diet, get enough sleep, get a micronutrient dense diet, get enough protein, get enough exercise, but don't overdo it. Doing the basics is important. Some other things, especially for people with Hashimoto's, with autoimmune thyroid conditions, that really tend to work well to reduce antibodies to potentially go into remission, which is possible. Again, low inflammatory diet, the most common foods that I see, let's say top 2, that drive an autoimmune thyroid condition after testing thousands of these people is dairy is number 1 and gluten is number 2. Get rid of those while keeping in micronutrient dense diet. Things like red light, like simple things. Red light can have an impact on not only antibodies, which it can reduce antibodies for Hashi and Graves. It can also improve thyroid function. It can help you actually activate your T4. Simple, easy, accessible, no medication. Selenium is great to reduce antibodies, to help activate your hormones. We need enough iron, making sure we're not walking around chronically iron deficient, which is honestly a reasonably common issue with women. They have whole thyroid supplements you can take from A to Z to get enough micronutrients to facilitate activation, conversion, sometimes even lower antibodies. I recommend staying away from iodine. Glutathione's another great one. There's all these things that we can do to try to manufacture improved function in cases where people are struggling. Sometimes it's successful. Sometimes people need medication.
Iodine. Tell me why people are avoiding it when so many people are told they need it because they're deficient and that's the reason why they have a thyroid issue.
Right. So that's very in vogue. I can speak to America. America and most industrialized countries, we no longer have iodine deficiency. It's actually extraordinarily rare. And in fact, most of us are walking around with too much iodine. Increasing iodine actually increases risk for autoimmune thyroid conditions. And one of the ways, if I get a patient's antibodies low, and then they're stuck, they're stagnant, one of the ways that I can move the needle in those really difficult cases is by removing iodine. Dr. Alan Christensen has a book about this, the thyroid reset diet, I think it's called. I've had many patients use that protocol successfully. A lot of the research pro iodine is based on one person who kind of has a little bit of circular thinking going on. And I think it's been adopted as truth. And I'm not a believer that it is.
Yeah. Crazy. What about fasting and the thyroid? Yeah. I don't know that they go hand in hand.
I get this question a lot. So I just did a podcast interview with Cynthia Thurlow and we chatted about this. So fasting has pros and cons. In my opinion, fasting can reduce antibodies. It can massively reduce inflammation. It can impact our longevity, anti-cancer, anti-aging in a plethora of ways. It can also be done in extreme and be detrimental to our health. So I am actually a huge proponent of intermittent fasting in the thyroid community, not only for inflammation, but because these people are giantly at risk for insulin resistance, leptin resistance, blood sugar dysregulation, high cholesterol, because of poor metabolic function due to hypothyroidism. So fasting is one of the unique lifestyle measures that we can do to try to unravel that metabolic dysfunction. But I think it needs to be balanced, especially with women. So I recommend no more than 4 to 5 days a week, 8-hour eating window, 16-hour fast. Always tell women, listen to your body. If you wake up and you're hungry, eat. Either don't fast that day or finish your eating window early. Listen to your body. Do not ever go by this hard, fast, extremist, dogmatic idea of what that looks like. And does that potentially cause some adrenal upregulation? Sure. But you know what really causes chronic adrenal upregulation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Chronic inflammation. Just our body cannot catch up on all of the cleanup that it needs to do when we are constantly working on breaking down, assimilating, and excreting food.
So I think for my patients, I encourage them to always eat breakfast and fast at the end of the day, which is not very social.
Right. And it's harder, but I agree. That's the best case scenario.
I think ideally waking up, breaking a fast for women, in my experience over time, seems to be ideal. That eating window obviously then ends pretty early in the day, and then you got to get through the rest of it. It's a bit boring. I really, really love prolonged fast for these reasons.
I know you do. Me too, sister. I don't recommend it to most of my patients, but I love it. Personally, it's changed my life.
I think once a year, twice a year maybe, just a reset. I think it works wonders. I think it does a lot, not just physically, but emotionally as well for people. It is hard. I don't advocate for doing in winter. I think you need to do this, or Chinese medicine will tell you definitely don't do it in winter. But I think it can be a really great reset for people. But again, I think we've all got to listen to our bodies. So many women are walking around so stressed that it is really probably the perfect storm, and they're not eating and they're relying on coffee and calling it intermittent fasting.
True. There's a right and wrong way to do it. And the goal is healing. Look, when we're walking around with a thyroid problem, our body's already stressed. We don't need to manufacture extra stress for it to deal with. You have to be attuned to your body. That's why I also don't recommend prolonged fast to most of my patients. They have to be in that particular unique physiological space with the right support, etc.
For that person that's listening going, okay, I've been on thyroxine for 15 years and I just feel worse and worse and worse and worse. You're telling them that potentially they can put their body into a state of recovery. Ideally, you want someone on the lowest to no dose of any medication without symptoms, right? That's the aim here.
Of course.
They can recover and they don't need to rely on medication necessarily alone for all of their days.
Well, there's two kind of subsets of people. One is people who have truly lost thyroid function. So often those are people with Hashimoto's, a history of breakdown of their thyroid gland, meaning their thyroid gland has been eroded away by antibodies. They are not going to regrow that thyroid tissue. The second subset in that same category is as we age, we see thyroid function reduce in the same way that we see hormones reduce, right? Those aren't in silos. We kind of lose hormonal function over time. That also needs to be replaced. Those people won't regain that function. But there's a second subset of people who have what I call a pure conversion disorder. They cannot activate their thyroid hormones. They produce them, they make them, they're producing T4, and those people can often temporarily go on medication, come off long-term, because that allows them to get their lifestyle in check, to work on all of these other cogwheels that influence that mechanism. And those people often can come off of medication long-term. I would say the vast majority of people truly on thyroid medication are because they've lost hormonal secreting tissue that needs to be replaced. Ideally better than thyroxine, ideally better than T4.